So we're here with Peter Bond from British Bins and TransAsian, one of the early Pakk adopters. So, Peter, can you just tell us a little bit about your sort of group of companies, what you do, and the products that you have and the services you offer?
Well, the prime company that we've had for 10 or 15 years is a company called British Bins. And that really is about recycling and waste management and environmental control of waste products. And we're both a reseller and a designer in that business. The business is B2B and B2C, so we're running something like 8 or 9 thousand invoices a year. So it's of that sort of scale, with a small team. And latterly, we've branched out into other products and projects where we have a product called Door Claw, which is about opening doors without having to touch them with your hands. And our main new product is a thing called Deck, which is a computer workstation, which is portable with large screens.
Okay, so obviously it's all physical product businesses in that case, mostly physical product businesses, and it's covering the whole span. So you're not purely B2B or purely B2C. You're sort of operating on lots of different levels in the chain.
Correct.
Okay. How have you been running all this up until now?
Well, we started off many years ago with spreadsheets and then with QuickBooks. And then more than 10 years ago, we moved into NetSuite, which was the first big online ERP system that purported to cover everything. And over the last year or two, we've been transferring or initiating a bunch of our products and businesses onto Pakk.
So obviously you're one of the very early adopters of Pakk. What is it, let's say, that's caused you to look outside the platform that you're currently running as you start these new businesses? What problems have you been experiencing, and what problems are you looking to solve?
Well, first of all, on NetSuite, it's extremely expensive, and they really use the monopoly that they create by having locked in customers in effect, or it's quite hard to change. So they just put on 5% a year or more that just kind of compounds up, and so the cost is a starting issue. But you would think that a company like that would be at the forefront of ease of use, of response to their own customers, but actually it's quite the reverse. The technology is really hokey, and they're not responsive at all to either current issues or new features. And so the other big problem with NetSuite is it's single brand. So you can't have multiple websites effectively and multiple brands. You'd end up spending massive amounts of money if you try to do all the different brands on NetSuite. It just doesn't work.
So you're one of the things you're really interested in is being able to run these sort of different branches of your business in a coherent and efficient way, right? That's quite important to you.
Absolutely, and to be able to spin up a new business and a new website and try things out and see what angles work and what doesn't work, and do all of that really without additional taking on a whole new ERP system for each system. So it's a phenomenal advantage relative to anyone else that we're aware of. And if there are other online ERP systems out there, most of them are pretty rough actually to use, but none of them even purport to have this sort of functionality, which is really a great advantage.
So you've obviously been using it and enjoying it with these sort of sub brands that you've been spinning up. How many are you running on Pakk at the moment?
we're running live 4 or 5 brands, I think,
Brilliant.
at the moment, and we're just this morning we spun up a Chinese version of one of the sites. So
Right.
um, we can just do that and experiment with it and see if it works and see how it's going to evolve. Which is just, you have no possibility of doing that with any other similar system.
So obviously coming from NetSuite and being one of the early adopters of Pakk, what other systems did you consider? What I mean, if you knew that you were going to transition away from NetSuite and you knew you were going to look for something else, obviously your requirements are pretty complex, multi-brand, multi-arm business with wholesale, retail, online sales, offline sales. Did you have a serious look at other individual platforms, other sort of combination technology stacks that you might have considered before opting for Pakk?
Yeah, I mean, there's the standard ones out there, and various versions of them, but you can look at things like Zero and all the various different front ends that bolt onto that, or Sage or QuickBooks, but none of those three players, which are the leader in accounting packages, have a very effective ERP system built in, or any sort of website front end offering built in. So, I mean, they're very good at their accounting side of things. So at least Zero and QuickBooks are. I'm not so sure about Sage. I still think that's from the 1980s in terms of their underlying systems. But they're very limited in terms of doing the other bits and pieces we want to do, and we're trying to run quite a large complex business with a small team, and patching together various front end selling systems into back end ERP systems. You need 3 or 4 systems. It's just not worth the grief.
So I'm right in thinking that then that's the main thing that attracted you about Pakk, because obviously you're quite a sizable company, but yet you don't want to devote a lot of manpower to sort of tweaking and micromanaging a software stack built up of different components. You are very much sort of dedicated to the single cloud solution, all in one platform.
Preferably, yeah, absolutely. And within that, Pakk is built on the latest technology. It's very, very fast. It works well on all the different platforms, and those are evolving and changing very quickly. So Pakk has a massive amount of advantages over most of the other front end systems, well, or complete systems. It's not just the front end systems.
How now you haven't switched the main British Bins brand to Pakk yet. That's coming sort of in the next quarter. You've been going one brand at a time, basically. Even so, how have you found the implementation? I won't say switch over because it's not really technically a switch over, but how have you found the implementation process so far for the brands and sites that you have switched across?
Well, it works really well. First of all, import and export work very, very well, much simpler and more functional than we've found anywhere else.
So you mean raw data import, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, setting things up. There's a simplicity which is actually really sophisticated in the way it works, and there's many other detailed features like that you realize are built within Pakk as you're actually trying to implement things. So we've been very comfortable about designing on Pakk and implementing things on Pakk. And particularly if we look at Techadeck, which is our kind of leading new project at the moment, that really looks good on Pakk and is very effective in terms of what it's doing for us.
You haven't felt constrained by the minimalism philosophy of Pakk in terms of designing your sites and the aesthetic of your sites, your team members that set up the sites and sort of build them. have kind of embraced this, simple minimalist site philosophy?
Well, I think we have to figure out how to do things, and people have got used to certain sets of tools, and so they do have to think twice when they see something new. But once they've done it and experimented with it, I think most people are pretty happy that it gives them the flexibility they need without loads of additional complication.
So going forward for the main brand, the British Bins brand, obviously you haven't implemented yet, so this is kind of more of like a prediction question, but what do you see will be the biggest advantages that you're going to gain from moving your main retail wholesale business over to Pakk in terms of running it and the sites and everything? What are you mainly hoping to get out of it once you do finalize the switch over?
Well, first of all, it's a case of the whole front end, bringing the whole thing up to date, and
Right.
creating a site that's a state of the art selling site, as we've always had, but making it really work well for us. And I think that it's going to be relatively quick and relatively simple to get that set up. We've experimented with lots of bits and pieces of that. We just haven't had the resource to move it through fully yet, but that's going to happen in the next quarter. And we're pretty clear about how we're going to do that and what we want to do, and think it's going to give us significant advantage in terms of a platform for the future, cost, and we also find the Pakk team really responsive to any issues that we have or any suggestions. So Pakk's moving forward very quickly in design, which is excellent.
So just one question then, because I think it's something that people do end up asking themselves a lot about implementation and who's doing what. This is, I think, in the enterprise world, when people are hiring consultants to do implementations, it's kind of much clearer. And then at the lower end of the market, the do-it-yourself type products, again, that's your job, let's say. With Pakk, how do you see it, and how do you plan to do it in terms of how much you are going to do, your team are going to do, and how much you'll ask of the Pakk team? I'm just asking because I think your situation is interesting, because you're, like I say, you're quite a sizable company, but you're actually planning to do all the implementation yourselves. You and your team are planning. You're not planning to contract any specific consulting services, let's say. So I'm trying to illustrate that a sizable implementation can be done on a do-it-yourself basis. Is that right?
I mean, there's absolutely no need to hire either an internal implementation team like Netsuite does, or a partner implementation team, and those things are phenomenally expensive.
Right.
You can spend 50 grand, 50,000 pounds really easily, and maybe more, in terms of doing really quite what should be really quite straightforward implementations. Some of these companies are in a space where they're used to making absolutely massive margins, and just using the ability to kind of lock people into things to just keep pushing the pricing.
Right. So the skills necessary to do that implementation, I'm right in saying that you don't have to have a hugely technical background to be able to do this, right? It's not. It's more of like a semi-technical. Is that how you describe it? Or?
There's virtually no code to write. I would say you can treat it as no code. And when I'm talking to code, we're talking kind of simple CSS and HTML. We're not talking deep code.
Right.
There's virtually no of that simple stuff. It doesn't mean that you still have to have a pretty clear view of what you want and where you're going, and what features you need to make, first of all, a good selling site, and then a good site for administering the business. But you don't. Obviously you need some skills to get the right pictures and the right text structure, but those are more kind of business skills on the whole, or graphical skills, than they are any sort of deep coding or implementation.
Right. So yeah, it's more like a business development skill set rather than a technical skill set that you need to set it up. I mean, and just to add, of course, that although Peter's team are pretty experienced and skilled in setting up cloud ERP systems, the Pakk team obviously helps with the setting up of workflows and things like that are more sort of detailed, bits and pieces that you want to come together to run your business. That's something that we sort of consult with customers to do. So, well, thanks very much, Peter, and maybe we'll catch up again once you've finished the British Bins implementation you've been running for a couple of months, and we can see how that's gone.
Sure, thank you indeed.
Thanks very much.